You about to lose your job. Get this thing. You about to lose your J-O-B. You about to lose your job. Get this thing. You about to lose your job. Get this thing.
Today I'm going to take y'all on a wild ride. In part thanks to one of our listeners and faithful supporters. Shout out to Char Willie. Thank you very much for part of this story. It's a really interesting ride we're about to go on. So let us take a look at this part of the story first. By the way, this is not new. Some of y'all, if not most of y'all, will have at least heard of this scenario before, if not have already seen it. But I do have an update on this story, and then I'll tell you how it ties into Char Willie's suggestion. So let's take a look.
What do you expect me to take? Give me the perfume. No, I didn't do anything.
I can freaking smell it.
I didn't do anything. I didn't spray anything.
Okay, first of all,
I'm sick of you.
I'm going to say it really fast because they're dirty, rotten little liars. Meet Jackie Miller, okay? Jackie Miller is a 68-year-old woman who has been driving buses for the school district for 2.5 years. That means she started driving after the age of 65. Do y'all remember what you were educated about when y'all were in like grade school about what retirement age was? I remember very clearly being told that 65 is retirement age. You live a good long life, you contribute to society, you pay your taxes, you provide children, the 2.5 children, the white picket fence, you mow your lawns, you do everything. And then you get to 65 and you retire. And retirement, pension, benefits, at least some government, right? There's going to be some type of benefit to cover you for having, like almost like celebration, like congratulations, you lived that long. That is not what's happening. And so those who are able-bodied often don't get to stop and enjoy their retirement. Instead, they have to do things like what Jackie Miller had to do, which is not just sit down, enjoy her little pension stipend and live. No, she had to continue working. She had to get a job that she was able to get, which is often types of jobs that are stressful or crappy in some way that no one else wants, right? And then we get to this position where a 68-year-old woman who's very allergic to perfume is on a bus full of a bunch of little jerk kids who don't care about your life or your feelings or the seriousness of any situation, and definitely don't like to be told what to do, and definitely like to torture the bus driver. I know I was one of those little jerk kids at some point, right? Let's keep it a buck. And so basically they had sprayed perfume recently, okay? And she had a really bad asthma attack. It was terrible on her health. I mean, she's a 68-year-old woman, right? Like she's old, okay? And so she had to talk with the kids and she said, listen, I need you guys to not be spraying perfume. Now let's be real. Okay, the way Jackie tells it, she's like grandma. She just appealed nicely, and these kids are just no. She probably didn't, right? I remember every bus driver we ever had, and none of them were friendly. But she told these kids like, "You almost killed me last time." Okay, there's a ban, no perfume spraying on the bus. So some little jerk sprayed some perfume. Then there's some little tattletale who told her about the perfume moments before she actually was able to smell it. So she pulled over the bus, and now she's trying to get down to the bottom of who sprayed it and trying to get them to try to take the perfume away, whatever, because she needs to drive the kids home, but they're really putting her life and therefore their safety in danger, right? Okay, so let's keep watching.
I'm sick of all the I'm done with it. I'm gonna start kicking some serious. Do you hear me?
Yes.
My foot's gonna be so far up your. It's gonna dangle out your nose. I'm done with you.
You know you're done wet.
Your phone in your bag. Now you give it to me.
Alright, fine.
Done. God dang it! I can smell it.
I didn't spray anything.
I'm allergic to the.
I didn't spray anything. They just like
Really?
Is it right in the big backpack? It's in the winning zipper.
You like to start too much.
I think she doth protest too much.
You're no innocent angel here. I'm done with this. Done. I've had my fill. I'm done with it.
Woo! And she's
I'm
done.
ready to walk off this bus right now and let you people walk home. How much more do you think anybody can freaking take?
Facts.
Shut your mouth. I don't want to hear another word out of your mouth. Excuse me. What did I just tell you?
Kids are smartasses, right? They're little jerks. They don't care.
You think it's funny?
Yes, they do.
You think it's
They
funny?
do. Yes,
You're
absolutely.
all. No, you didn't. You're so full of.
Facts.
You're as bad as he is. Done. Done. Not another word out of any of you. Done. Somebody needs to come up on this bus and seriously kick some. God.
Bruh. This is Jackie Miller. This is that bus driver. This woman looks like she's too old to have to be driving that bus, okay? Let's be real. You get to a certain age and life experience, and you know, that should buy you a certain level of dignity where you're not needing to have to bully or war with these children, right? Let's be real. You shouldn't have to at her age. But unfortunately, what are you supposed to do at 68 years old if the government won't take care of you, if all those taxes you paid into the system are not willing to now come back to you? What do? Right? So the thing is, she was beyond her wits end. She was like basically said, fine, maybe I'll just have to live under a bridge or something. Like, who cares? Who cares about all of this? I'm done. I'm done with this. And she was literally, after she had gotten the kids home, you know, saying like, I don't know if I can deal with this. I don't know if I can do one more day, even though I need to. And, you know, she got a call from the superintendent. And, you know, at that point, she still didn't even know there was a video. And she said she'll resign. And I said, no, we'll put you on paid administration leave. And she said, no. The right thing to do is for me to resign. I resign fully right now. That's the right thing to do. What I did was dead ass wrong. I'm not saying it was right. What I did was not right. What I did was very wrong. I was beyond my beyond, right? Like, imagine you did everything to try to keep these kids safe, to, you know, look out for them, get them home, whatever. You know, you got to do this job, add insult to injury that you still got to go get a new job and then be treated terribly by these kids after the age of 65, you know. You think about all of that, getting no love, no respect, no appreciation while interacting with kids, which, let's be real, you're kind of built at that point to be with your own grandkids, right? Not driving around a bunch of, you know, ungrateful jerks who don't care about you. And so she was done. And to have the kind of integrity that before knowing there was a video, before being forced into it, she was saying, I resign. And they're like, oh, no, paid administrative leave. And she's like, no, it's the right thing to do, right? Now, in this case, I'm going to give you guys an update about Jackie Miller. There is a great update for her, right? So Jackie Miller, so you can see here, Jackie Miller, in the week and a half since the incident, people across the country have rallied around Miller, calling themselves hashtag Team Bus Driver. Supporters have raised more than $105,000 as a retirement fund for her. She said, this has just floored me. It was the last thing she expected, especially on March 29th, the day of the incident, right? So this is an amazing feat. And, you know, salutations to human beings for caring, right? Because I could see her just having been brushed off as like a Karen and like, that's it, you know, instead of looking at the overall picture. But yeah, no, imagine, put yourself in her shoes, right? And then people go, oh, why don't you just retire? Because the majority of jobs, especially when talking about these big corporations and whatever, they do whatever they can to get full-time work without full-time benefits, right? So people aren't getting pensions, people aren't getting 401ks, people aren't getting enough disposable income for them to invest in those things themselves. So they get to retirement age, and then in a lot of places, they've bumped retirement age up from 65 to 70, and then from 70 to, I think it's like 72 or something, right? Because in essence, what they're trying to do is keep people working until they die. Like, they're just going to bump it up to like 100, then 115, right? Like there is no end in sight. There is no time you get to just stop unless you are one of the lucky like 20% who has like a built-in 20 pension or 401k. That's what they want. Now, if you think I'm kidding, or if you're one of those ignorant people saying, whatever, there's Medicaid and Medicare, and, the government always takes care of these people. Oh, okay, well, let's see if the government takes care of these people. And again, shout out and thanks to Shar for this one. Cheers! Assisted living homes are rejecting Medicaid and evicting seniors. Some residents who drained their nest eggs to cover private pay rates have been evicted after turning to Medicaid to pay their bills. But check this out. 91, used a walker to get around, had dementia, was enrolled in hospice care. Despite her age and infirmity, Holtz was evicted from the assisted living facility she called home for 4 years. 4 years! Because she relied on government health insurance for low-income seniors. Holtz was one of 15 residents told to vacate Emerald Bay Retirement Community near Green Bay, Wisconsin, after the facility stopped accepting payment from a state-sponsored Medicaid program. And Emerald Bay is not alone. A recent spate of evictions has ousted dozens of assisted living residents in Wisconsin who depended on Medicaid to pay their bills, an increasingly common practice according to industry representatives. These evictions highlight the pitfalls of the U.S. long-term care system, which is showing fractures from the pandemic, just as a wave of 73 million baby boomers is hitting an age where they are likely to need more day-to-day care. What did I start with? This is why I asked y'all, do you remember what you were taught in school? We knew it was going to be tough for the baby boomers, didn't we? We knew that we were going to have a deficit. Social safety nets were going to be super secure until the baby boomers reached retirement age, or they could have been super secure because you would have a surplus of adults working versus children or adults who needed care. That was ultimately what it came down to. And so now you've got the baby boomers who are now all coming to that age. All right, check this out. So about 4.4 million Americans have some form of long-term care paid for by Medicaid, the state federal health system for the poor, a patchy safety net that industry representatives say pays facilities too little. Residents of assisted living facilities, promoted as a homier, more appealing alternative to nursing homes, face an especially precarious situation. While federal law protects Medicaid beneficiaries in nursing homes from eviction, the law does not protect residents of assisted living facilities, leaving them with few options when turned out. In Wisconsin, residents who entered facilities on Medicaid, as well as those who drained their private savings after moving in and subsequently enrolled in Medicaid, have been affected. This is a tragedy, and these people deserve better. Look at this poor lady. It just breaks my heart because, she's 91 and, she's senile, right? So she's going to smile and whatever while you're just ripping her soul out, while you're draining her banks, while you're ripping her off, while you're just doing all kinds of terrible things. And she will just sit there and smile at you with the most open heart. And for those of you who were raised in this ideal where, you just abandon your elderly, like I wasn't raised in that ideal, right? I still have a very West Indian culture around what you do with the elderly, which is that when someone is too old to take care of themselves, you either go to them and offer aid, right? Or you move them in with you. But what you never do is just throw your elderly away, right? What you never do is put your elderly into some kind of home and then just never bother with them again. You don't do that. And for those of you who do that, right, because you think, well, hey, come on, it's a nursing home, whatever. I want you to understand this, right, that the U.S. government does not monitor or regulate assisted living facilities, and no federal data is available on the frequency of evictions. In Wisconsin, the Washington Post counted at least 50 Medicaid-related evictions since the fall based on statements by operators as well as nonprofit and government Medicaid agencies. And to be clear, if you aren't in their presence constantly. And we had this experience with my grandma when she was hospitalized a few times, right? We had to be with her around the clock because the way that they treated her or didn't treat her just didn't do their basic job. It was repulsive. You have to be on them. So if you're not, then it allows them to do things like lie on your family member and say things like, well, their needs are just too great for our facility. We just can't do it anymore. Sorry about it. We're not turfing them for no reason, right? We're turfing them because they require a nursing home. They require a level of care that we don't provide, even though they don't qualify for the level of care at that next level. See what I'm saying? It's terrible. Now here's a problem right here. The gap in pay rates between Medicaid and the full amount charged to families paying out of pocket varies among states. While private pay rates are often $5,000 a month or more, Medicaid in many states pays only about $3,000 a month. Operators have tried to hold off canceling Medicaid contracts as long as they can, hoping the reimbursement will be increased to help them afford inflation factors. Hope has diminished in some states of that happening, and they're saying, I can't do this anymore. Sorry. Oh yeah, and for the record, remember, I mentioned it earlier, but what these places have done and will do is they'll say, yeah, no, we'll keep you still when you qualify for low payment person, right? Because in Medicaid will cover you, they give us a stipend. It's not as much as what you pay out of pocket, right? But she's entirely drained of all of her money first. Okay. Let's look at what Karen, of course her name is Karen, Bateman says that responds directly to that. Not like in the article, but in general. You'll see why in a second, right? With the new year comes necessary changes. Okay, Karen wrote this letter January 6th because there's just never going to be a good January 6th going forward ever again, apparently. Got to ruin last year's, then you got to ruin this year's. Good job, Karen. That informed them that the facility would no longer accept Medicaid. But, says Karen, our 60-day notice of Medicaid termination gives you ample time to plan accordingly. Ample time. I mean, sure, you're like 90 years old. We've drained every dime of money that you've ever saved up in your lifetime. And now you're senile and literally incapable of taking care of yourself. But yeah, 60 days should be more than adequate time for you to take care of that. Can you imagine? Now, I want you to recognize, right, that what's happening here is twofold. It's not just about people who fail to plan accordingly for the future, right? These are people who do have savings, who do have, sure, maybe it's not millions of dollars, but they try to save and plan accordingly, figure, hey, I could pinch pennies in $120,000 and, and that gets drained from them in rapid fire succession. There is no penny pinching here, right? Look at this. So Megan Briot, or Brio, probably, whose mother, Nancy Brio, was evicted from Harbor Chase of Sherwood after spending most of her $120,000 savings, says it's appalling to say the least. They said, here, let us take your money, all your life savings, and you can live here forever. And 10 months later, they're saying, we miscalculated and we are no longer taking Medicaid beds. Right? So I want you to think about what's happening on two fronts. You have Medicaid that is not giving support the way that it should, the way that it needs to, the way that people have honestly earned. Right? And then you also have people who have tried to do their part, and all of that savings, the 401k, that whatever that they've been able to build up for themselves, that pension, they're cashing that out to pay this place that says, listen, this is the safest bet for you. You pay us all of your money, and then once you qualify for Medicaid, now you can just stay here forever. Right? Like poor Shirley, a 91-year-old woman who got there and 4 years later is getting evicted. Can you? Jeez. And if you think that's not what it is, it says it right here. In the end, the Emerald Bay Medicaid contract was managed by a nonprofit called Lakeland Care. In the end, Emerald Bay asked us to pay the full private pay rate for these members, which we are unable to do so as a Medicaid funded agency. Lakeland Care's chief executive officer, Sarah Mullbauer, said in a written statement to the Post. Now, I want you to think about this one last thing. I want you to recognize something, okay? They recognize that there's an overabundance of elderly people, but it's just in this one generation, right? The same cannot be said of Generation X. I mean, there's less Generation Xers, right? And so, the boomers are original. Therefore, it wouldn't make sense to build massive amounts of these homes or whatever, to try to compensate for the extra elderly people. So what they're doing instead is just saying, no, get rid of these Medicaid people. I'm losing like 40% of my income per month per bed. Get rid of those people because, hey, guess what? There's going to be somebody who can come in and afford this bed. And maybe they can only afford it for a few years, maybe 5, maybe 6, I don't know, right? But who cares? Let's make sure that we're getting properly paid. And what's happening to the elderly otherwise? Who cares? We're just dashing them away. Like they don't matter. And if you think I'm kidding, Shirley Holtz. Experts say moving elderly people out of familiar surroundings can induce a condition called transfer trauma that accelerates decline. Shirley Holtz's relatives detected rapid changes after the eviction, said Mara, her daughter. Her mother lost 15 pounds, she said, and quickly stopped using her walker. On April 3rd, 3 weeks after moving out of Emerald Bay and into the new facility, Shirley Holtz died. The move was a huge factor in her decline. Even as she mourned, Mara texted an expletive to describe the U.S. long-term care system, punctuated by a red-faced frown emoji. Kinda angry right now, she said. Look at that poor woman just sitting there smiling while being traumatized. And if that's what they're doing to this demographic, imagine what they do to ours.